Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going way back, like way, way back. We're diving into the life of a guy who, you might not expect to be a big deal in law. Emperor Justinian I, 6th century Byzantine Empire. Not exactly the first thing you think of for, legal systems, right?
It's funny, when we think Roman emperors, right, it's all conquests, gladiators.
hmm
But Justinian, his legacy is really in the legal world.
Yeah.
Kind of surprising.
Definitely not your typical emperor story. This is a story of ambition, rebellion, even a remarkable empress, and
Yeah.
yeah, a legal code that still echoes today, believe it or not. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's set the scene right. So picture this. The Roman Empire, once this unstoppable force, now it's fractured the western half. Gone, crumbled. That leaves Justinian with the East, the Eastern Roman Empire, or the Byzantines as they're called. Not an easy thing to inherit, I imagine.
Oh, not at all. And to really get why Justinian matters, we got to understand that world. He inherits an empire fighting itself, fighting off outsiders. It was a mess.
And out of all that, Justinian rises to power.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. This guy, he starts as a peasant, just like his uncle, Emperor Justin I, and he becomes the most powerful man in the East. That tells you something about his drive, and his intelligence,
Makes you wonder about those early years. What takes you from peasant to emperor?
honestly.
Yeah.
Education was huge for him. Justinian's story, it shows how much knowledge mattered, even in a time when it was all about military power. He really dove into learning, especially law, and that shaped everything.
And that ambition, it went beyond just being emperor. He wanted the whole Roman Empire back. He spent much of his rule trying to reclaim those lost territories in the West. Makes you wonder if that desire, that ambition to reunite the empire, if that pushed him towards law too.
It's definitely connected. But to see how, you got to understand Roman law back then. Imagine thousands of legal texts, some hundreds of years old, contradictions everywhere, outdated stuff, and no organization.
Yep.
Scattered everywhere.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster, frankly. How did anyone even use the law with all that chaos?
Yeah.
A total mess.
So how do you even start to fix that? Did Justinian just lock himself in a library and get to work?
He had a little help.
Okay, good.
This wasn't a one-man job. Justinian, he launches this huge project, the Corpus Juris Civilis, that's body of civil law, if you want the fancy Latin, and it was all about bringing order to that chaos.
I was going to say.
He gets a team together, all the best legal minds he can find, led by this guy, Tribonian, a seriously brilliant jurist. Their job, go through all those old laws, figure out the contradictions, and make it all make sense.
Tribonian. Sounds intense. So this wasn't just a copy-paste job then? They weren't just making a giant scroll of old laws, huh?
Nope. The Corpus Juris Civilis, it was structured, organized, really carefully put together. It's divided into four main parts. First, you've got the Codex. That's all the imperial laws, the big important stuff, clearly laid out. Think of it like the official law of the land. Then there's the Digest, or Pandex if you're feeling fancy.
Hit me with it. So the digest, it takes all these opinions, interpretations from famous Roman legal experts going way back, and it summarizes them. It's like they condensed centuries of legal debates into something you could actually read.
So they weren't just putting laws in, but also the expert commentary, all the arguments about those laws that had happened over time. That's pretty cool. What else? What were the other parts?
Right, so they wanted to make sure all this legal knowledge, it didn't just sit on a shelf somewhere. So they create the institutes, basically Law School 101. It takes those big, complicated Roman legal ideas and makes them simple, easier to understand. Like, imagine a crash course in Roman law.
Roman law for dummies. I like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then lastly, you've got the novellae.
hmm
That's all the new laws Justinian passed during his time as emperor. So the Corpus Juris Civilis, it wasn't just stuck in the past. It could change with the times, include new stuff as needed.
Wow. I mean, just thinking about all the work that went into it, it's amazing this thing even exists. And then the impact it had, it's incredible. But I kind of want to switch gears for a second. Talk about Justinian the guy. He wasn't just about laws, right?
Oh, definitely not. Justinian, he was complicated, ambitious. He wanted to create this amazing, powerful empire. And that wasn't just about law. He was really into big building projects, too. The Hagia Sophia, for example.
Oh, man, the Hagia Sophia. It's unbelievable. I still remember seeing it for the first time. That place just takes your breath away. So beautiful, so grand. Talk about ambition, right? But it's more than that. It's like the whole artistic heart of the Byzantine Empire all in one building.
Exactly. It's this lasting symbol of Justinian's rule. He wanted to leave his mark, and he did. But that kind of ambition, it comes with a price tag, literally. All those huge buildings, plus the wars he was fighting to get back the West, that took money. Lots of it.
And I'm guessing not everyone was thrilled about paying more taxes to make that happen. There must have been some pushback, right?
You bet. In fact, it got pretty bad. The Nika riots, 532 AD, that was a real wake-up call. Even the most powerful emperor, he wasn't safe from, like, angry citizens.
Angry citizens, what happened? Tell me more about the Nika riots.
Picture this. Constantinople, right? The heart of the Byzantine Empire.
Yeah.
Suddenly, bam, riots everywhere. People were already mad about high taxes, right? And then you've got these political groups, they see an opening, and they use it to try and get rid of Justinian. It was nuts. People wanted him gone.
Sounds like things almost fell apart there. How did he survive that? How did he hold on to power?
It was a close one. He almost bailed, actually.
Mm.
Thought about fleeing the city. But Theodora, his wife, she convinces him to stay and fight. And, well, he listened. Justinian crushes the rebellion. Shows everyone he's in charge. But it's a different side of him, you know? More ruthless.
Theodora. Now, there's someone we need to talk about. Not just Justinian's wife, but a real power player in her own right. And talk about an interesting past. It's not every day you hear about an empress with a background like hers. So, spill the tea. Tell us about Theodora.
Okay, an empress with a past. I'm all ears. It's not every day you hear about an emperor's wife, you know, really taking charge, let alone one with a less than traditional background.
Exactly. Theodora's life, it really shows you what resilience and ambition look like. This is a woman who went from being an actress, a courtesan, to one of the most powerful women in the Byzantine Empire. Think about that for a second. The barriers she must have faced back then with those kinds of professions, it's remarkable.
Seriously. What do we know about her personality? How did she handle all that, according to the sources?
Theodora, she was known for being smart, quick-witted, and she was a political powerhouse, no question. Justinian really relied on her advice. Some historians even say she's the reason he stayed and fought during those riots we talked about, the Nika riots. She might have saved his empire, really. Wow. Talk about a power couple, right? Definitely not just standing around looking pretty. So what did she do? What were some of her big accomplishments?
Well, for one, Theodora was a huge advocate for women's rights, which in that time period was pretty radical. She fought for laws that gave women more legal standing, you know, things like divorce and property rights. You can really see her influence in Justinian's laws. She pushed the boundaries for women in Byzantine society.
That's amazing, using her position to make real change. But let's get back to Justinian's legal stuff, that Corpus Juris Civilis. We've talked about how it came to be, but why should we care? Why does this legal code from, what, almost 1,500 years ago, why does it matter today?
That's the million-dollar question, right? The Byzantine Empire might seem like ancient history now, but it left a mark, especially Justinian's legal reforms. That Corpus Juris Civilis, it wasn't just a dusty old book of laws. It laid the groundwork for how we think about law in the West, even now.
Okay, so how does a Byzantine legal code end up influencing law in the West? How does that even happen?
It's actually a pretty wild story. After the Western Roman Empire fell, the Corpus Juris Civilis, it kind of disappeared in the West. People forgot about it. But then, fast forward to the 11th century, some legal scholars in Italy, they rediscover it. And they're blown away. They loved how clear and logical it was, how systematic.
Like finding a lost civilization's rule book for a legal system.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it came at the perfect time, too. Europe's coming out of the Middle Ages, right? Things are changing fast. They needed a better legal system, something more organized to deal with trade, government, all that. And boom, they find the Corpus Juris Civilis.
So did countries just like copy and paste it? Did they just say, okay, we'll take it?
Not quite. It was more like they took inspiration from it, adapted it. The Corpus Juris Civilis, it became this model for what we call civil law systems. Those are big in continental Europe, Latin America, parts of Asia too.
Which reminds me, we should probably talk about civil law versus common law. I hear those terms thrown around a lot. What's the difference? And how does Justinian fit into that?
Sure. So civil law, like we were saying, it comes from Roman law, specifically the Corpus Juris Civilis. It's all about written laws, legal codes, that's where the law is. Judges, they interpret and apply those codes, but they can't just make new law based on, you know, whatever they feel like. It's different from common law.
So less about following precedents, more about sticking to the written law.
Exactly. Now, common law, that mostly developed in England and places England had colonies like the U.S. They care a lot about precedents. That means past court decisions, they're really important. They actually become law.
It's mind-blowing. Legal ideas from 6th century Byzantium still matter in courtrooms today. That's wild.
It really shows you how powerful ideas can be, especially in law. Justinian's story, it reminds us that law, it's not set in stone. It changes, adapts through time, through different cultures.
It makes you wonder what Justinian would think, seeing his legal system have this global impact. Crazy. It really is a testament to Roman law, even with Justinian's Corpus Juris Civilis giving it that update.
For sure. It makes you think about the impact one person can have, especially when they try to bring order to chaos,
Yeah.
even if it takes centuries for everyone else to catch up.
That it does. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of Justinian I. We've gone from Roman law in shambles to the creation of, like, this legal masterpiece, and then all the way to its lasting legacy on legal systems around the world. Hopefully, you've come away with a new appreciation for this emperor and how he changed history. Not to mention a little bit of awe for just how far-reaching Roman law really was. Until next time, keep exploring those big questions and keep diving deep into the stories that have shaped our world.